Hello. Today we're going to be talking about Judd Apatow The Return. This is a stand-up comedy special on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, and it stars Judd Apatow, the who's better known for directing and writing movies like Knocked Up and 40-Year-Old Virgin, movies like that. So he is doing stand-up, and this is actually the reason it's called The Return is because it's been 25 years since he's done stand-up, and he didn't do very much. Like, he actually tells a story later on about how at one point he realized that it just wasn't for him at that time, because he was hanging out with guys like Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey and seeing what it was really like to be a comedian, and he knew that he didn't have it. He was more of an idea man than anything else. So this is basically something he really wanted to do for a long time, so he's done it, and it's actually a really good special. Like, considering how long it's been since he's done it, there's no issues with his presentation. Like, he's good, he's funny, he keeps the tone going. There's no issues with the flow. I mean, if there were, that it could be edited out. There's maybe like a couple of minor camera issues, but that was obviously not his fault. And the jokes were funny too. There was, for the most part, pretty original. Nothing you've heard before. In the beginning, he kind of just tells like joke after joke after joke, and they all have like different subjects. But then near the end, he starts telling more like longer stories that lead up to punchlines, which it was interesting to see that kind of variety, because usually the comedians stick to one or the other. But and for a while there, I thought he might run out of material because he was covering so many topics in such little time. But he does cover a lot. Like, he talks about like his movies and how he goes by how Amazon recommends people who watch his movies. Like, if you watch his movies, what do they recommend after that? And he came up with some pretty funny titles. He talks about like being a parent to two girls, and what that's like, and having to watch like the Kardashians just to relate to his daughter. And he talks about like marriage and sex life. He has a really good story about meeting the president and how he really wanted to get a photo of him making the president laugh. And so that's a good story near the end. And he talks about Netflix, like binge watching shows on Netflix, and how when you binge watch, and this is something I've noticed too, is when you binge watch, you have to wait a year for that show to come around again, and it's been so long, you don't remember who the characters are, or who's the bad guys, who are the good guys. Like, he was saying, he got halfway through a show before he realized he already watched it. And stuff like that. And it's pretty funny. And then he talks about like his show on Netflix, which is Love. And for those who haven't seen it, it's like this really goofy guy hanging out with this I think her name's Jillian Jacobs, the girl from Community. And she, for some reason, likes the guy. And so he was talking about that, and how, people think it's unrealistic for like goofy looking guys to get beautiful women, but and then he talked about himself and being married to Leslie Mann, and also talked about like the crowd, and how there's lots of goofy looking guys with beautiful women in the crowd. So that was pretty funny. So he talks about Instagram too, and how his daughters are on there, and how he really doesn't like this kind of stuff they post and things like that, but then they're so comfortable with it. And he compares that to like if he had just taken a Polaroid and mailed it to a stranger and asked them for feedback and asked them to pass it on to other people because he wanted as many people to see it. Like that's how the old days version of Instagram would work. So that was pretty funny. He does have a lot of jokes more about things like Instagram and the social media. He does talk about Trump, not too much. Um, and yeah, he talks about Obama quite a bit. Mostly what he talks about with Trump is how he hopes there's a tape of him, the PP tape he kept calling it, and how amazed he is that Trump got past the Access Hollywood tape. And he talks about like himself being older and having like a dad bod, and not working out, and he told us a story about throwing out a pitch at a baseball game and how out of shape he was, and how, since he hasn't actually thrown a ball in so long, he kind of forgot how to do it. Yeah, there's quite a few jokes. He really covers a lot of different topics, and he kind of talks about, like with the baseball game, he talks about kind of how famous is he really, because he's not in front of the camera, he's behind the camera, and how well do people actually like his movies. And judging like Obama, he wanted to know if he liked his movies, and he had a funny story about that. And then he wanted to know, when he threw out the first pitch, how people would react to that. So those were pretty funny stories too. But overall, like, he did a really good job, especially considering he hasn't done this in a while. And he had a lot of jokes that were funny and original and entertaining. It was a good special for sure. It was an hour long, and there was no filler. There was no down moments. There were no directorial mistakes or issues with the crowd, hecklers, anything with the crowd just not responding to the jokes very much. But overall, it was a good show. So I'd have to give this an 8 out of 10, and definitely a thumbs up. And it would be one that I would definitely recommend to people to watch. And that is Judd Apatow, The Return. It's a Netflix original comedy special, and it's available now. So go watch it. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe, or all of the above. Thank you, and have a nice day.